Lydia Thomsen. I am the founder of Pickled Compost. So it's a kaupapa designed to provide households, workplaces, and communities with a practical, low-tech but microbial-powered composting system. So it's a system that safely stores all types of food scraps, even challenging foods such as meat scraps, fish, seafood waste. So that includes bones, brains, shells, dairy products, as well as citrus and other plant foods. The process is based on a Bokashi system, which, if you don't are not familiar with, it's supposed to have no sort of offensive odors or attract nasty pests. However, it does require a starter containing beneficial microbes to ferment and preserve food scraps in an airtight container. I happen to make the starter myself, and I sell it online, as well as starter kits that enable people to ferment their food scraps effectively and keep valuable food scraps out of landfill and return those nutrients to whenua. It's also a process that speeds up the rate of breakdown. So within a few weeks, most of the food scraps have broken down, and it's very nourishing for the soil. So my work has always sort of been focused on improving health outcomes and food quality and access. I'm actually from a farm up in Hawke's Bay, in a little place called Pātoka. And I whakapapa from Denmark, England, and Ireland. My family have been involved in farming and food production for generations. And in the last 6 years, I made the call to return home after working public health job in Melbourne to learn more about soil health and its role in improving food and nutrition. And that included learning how to grow food and ultimately compost. So I ended up working in the likes of like community, Kai Cycle, and Mangaroa farms. And for me, coming from a farm, I still consider myself like a land steward. So I still feel like I have a responsibility to care for and respect the land for generations to come. And this means sort of giving more than what we take. And composting for me is a great way to give back, and growing seasonal produce and supporting local growers. Like these are the sorts of practices that strengthen and build resilience within local food systems, because food is particularly important and it's really important for me. I ended up studying a human nutrition, a Bachelor of Science in Human Nutrition. So I'm a New Zealand Registered Nutritionist. I'm based in the Wairarapa in Wellington. And yeah, very passionate about improving food quality from soil to plate, as well as recovering any nutrients that we use from preparing sort of whole foods, and yeah, returning those back to the soil. So today I thought we could kind of cover briefly what Bokashi is and pickled compost, and talk about how I sort of been preferring using a single bucket method versus the traditional Bokashi bin systems. And then I'll run through a few case studies that have been funded by local council, and yeah, give you a sense of how they're applying Bokashi that's specific to their context. So what is Bokashi? So it originated in 17th century Japan and translates as fermented organic matter. It enables all food scraps to be composted, including cooked and raw food, meat, dairy, bones, shells, baked goods, citrus, veg, fruit peelings. It's the works. It's a system that ferments, pickles food scraps with little to no oxygen, using a patented product called effective microbes, or EM1. And these microbes are considered facultative, so they don't mind a little oxygen, but prefer a more anaerobic environment to thrive. The Bokashi process, it requires a two-step process. So the first is an anaerobic step. So you pickle or bokashi all the food in an airtight container first, and then for it to break down fully, it needs to be broken down in soil or compost. So requires aerobic conditions for it to break down properly. And it acts like a probiotic for your compost and soil. The benefits are pretty awesome. So all food scraps are acceptable. I just keep out liquids and moldy foods. I'm often blown away at how much rubbish is reduced from not having to add any food scraps in your general waste system. And the smell for me improves greatly. And I also find that my compost bin is a lot bigger than my rubbish bin these days. So yeah, big win if you are able to remove all your food scraps from your general waste. And it's very cost effective as well. Bokashi stores food scraps safely, so you're not attracting any nasty pests. For one thing, it's an airtight container, so generally they can't get in. And also, pickle food is not that appealing for pests. And also, because it's stored safely, there's no foul odor. I like to tell people that it kind of smells like sauerkraut or kombucha, kimchi, sweet and sour pickles. And also the fact that you don't have to have a garden in order to process your pickled scraps. There's always the option of using a soil factory or container gardens or free compost sharing platforms like Make Soil and Peels. And there's some community compost hubs that are happy to accept bokashi nowadays as well. And I also just love the fact that bokashi buys you time. So even if you don't have a garden space, you can store your bokashi for weeks or even months. Just be careful around like raw fish and seafood products. Yeah, they are a little bit risky to like leave for too long. But yeah, I've had experience where I've left a bokashi for months and it's been perfectly fine. And another benefit is the fact that pickling speeds up the breakdown of food scraps, so up to 1.5 times faster in the soil. So why bokashi? So I love the fact that it captures all nutrients from your food scraps, and the fermentation process. I just see huge potential in improving soil health. I mean, it's very beneficial for human health as well, being able to make nutrients more available for us humans, but also for the soil and plants. The fact that it's low tech and microbe powered, they're doing all these microbes are kind of doing all the work for you. And we're not relying on any kind of fossil fuels or anything like that to process the compost waste. And it's a fairly safe process. Yeah, like there's a like natural occurring bactericide that preserves that waste for you. So my mission is to try and create more opportunities for composting to occur, like normalize this process for people in general, and to be able to keep food scraps local. So coming up with ways on how we can process food locally or within community using the Bokashi system. And also, like as a nutritionist, being able to connect composting to whole food eating habits as well. So this whole food eating approach, so this also includes consuming fermented foods where possible, which is something that we have done sort of historically for millennia, really, generally out of necessity to ensure that we have nutrients accessible all year round. So pickled in a way is kind of more than just the Bokashi method. As a nutritionist, I want to promote more nutrient preservation, and that's generally sort of, including more lacto ferments in the diet and really just valuing food. I just feel as though we've got ourselves into like a modern day pickle where food is heavily processed and this like beautiful whole perishable food just gets discarded and wasted in landfill. I must admit, times are changing. There is more of a movement and awareness surrounding the health benefits of fermented foods like sauerkraut and sourdough. But yeah, the fermented foods, they not only preserve nutrients, but they make more nutrients available to the body and plants. And I've kind of deliberately referenced this dichotomy like within the brand. So I kind of want to make light or make fun of the pickle we've kind of got ourselves in, with the increasing amount of food waste going to landfill, but also, using pickled composting, the Bokashi is a way to help kind of solve this food waste problem, with the help of microbes. So microbes, I have become obsessed with microbes. I just think we wouldn't exist without them. We have, more bacterial microbe cells than we do human cells. And yeah, as I've alluded to before, they help make nutrients more available to us. And through the breakdown of food, they just help so many things in terms of our health. And became so passionate about microbes that I sort of wanted to make my own inoculant. And I've been using coffee husks. So it's a waste product from the coffee roasting process. I was in Wellington at the time and wanted to make use of this byproduct, and it makes for a perfect inoculant. It's very lightweight. It's very pleasant to work with. It's smelling like coffee, and then all of a sudden, when it's fermenting, I do get it does end up smelling like a brewery. I was making it in my garage, and my garage was smelling like a brewery at one stage. But yeah, in general, very pleasant to work with. Very lightweight. It's almost 4 times lighter than using like a brand-based inoculant. But you end up using almost less of it, because it can be easily spread across your food scraps. But yeah, you do have to be a bit careful around like high protein foods. You kind of want to stick with the standard 2 tablespoons worth if you're layering your Bokashi in like 2 to 3 layers. And yeah, I package it in a home possible pouch. I do have wholesalers that stock the product as a refill, and they'll pre-fill glass jars at these particular wholesalers. So yeah, trying to cut down on single-use packaging is one of my goals. But yeah, selling it in a few retail stores, and I'll talk a bit later about how I've co-designed a Te Ao Māori version of Pickled, with this beautiful rangatahi group up in Hawke's Bay. So I'll talk more about that in later slides. But yes, generally selling the inoculant individually in bulk as well as in bulk, and also as a starter kit using single buckets. So I'll talk through my experience with both systems. They both have their pros and their cons. So with the single bucket, while I'm selling new buckets, I am really encouraging people to use what they have. So yeah, if they have buckets lying around that are still airtight, sort of encouraging people to use them as like a pickle, as a Bokashi bucket. And they're really cost effective because you only sort of need two buckets at least. And you also, with a single bucket, you are capturing or containing all the contents inside. So all the liquid and odor is all sort of contained. And it's a lot more airtight. So more, in my experience, more airtight than other Bokashi bins that I've used in the past. And there's also no no need to drain the liquid unless you're wanting to use it as a fertilizer. I have found that the single bucket lids can be a bit stiff or hard to open at times. And yeah, the fact that you do need an absorbent layer on the bottom to soak up excess moisture. So I suggest to tear up pieces of cardboard, just enough to cover the bottom layer, and that's generally enough to absorb all that excess moisture. Or you can use wood mulch as an alternative. So otherwise, if you don't, it can get really soggy if you're not careful with putting liquids in. And with a traditional Bokashi bin, so it is easy for people to use the liquid tea. The contents of the Bokashi is dry, which is really important. You can still create your DIY version, but you need more buckets. So, in the as you know, if you're doing a DIY, you have to drill holes in one bucket, and then you have another bucket that sits underneath to collect the liquid. So, you are using more buckets than you would with a single bucket. And with a traditional Bokashi bin, I do need to drain the liquid every few days, or odors can develop. And I just find that, yes, that's slightly less airtight. So my experience, I've had issues with flies getting in and maggots, and yeah, it's not been pleasant. So yeah, it's just one of a few reasons why I prefer to use a single bucket in my starter kits. To mainly control odors and pests, and in general, they're just more low maintenance. Yeah. And equipment. So I like to keep things really simple. Suggesting that all you need is some cardboard and a bucket, as well as the inoculant. Encourage people to use a compost caddy. You don't want to be opening your Bokashi all the time. It's just introducing too much oxygen, and that's just going to disrupt the fermentation process. It's also really critical to compress the food material every time you add a layer. This is going to remove air pockets and promote a more effective pickle. My favorite compressor of choice is a brick. feel like I can smash things like oyster shells and mussel shells, and yeah, I can remove as much air as I can with a brick. Um, and yeah, just lost my train of thought for a minute. And also you need to be able to break down the bokashi. So um, yeah, if people don't have a garden, as I alluded to before, having something like a soil factory or a container garden are really useful at breaking down your finished bokashi. And here is just some instructions that I include in with the inoculant. Yeah, so I don't need to go through all of that right now. Um, and yeah, how do you know if you have a successful pickle? It should smell sweet and sour. You might see some white mold thread um, growing on top. If it's not smelling great, and if there's some black, green, blue mold going on top, it's likely to be putrefying, not pickling. So, um, yeah, you could probably still use it, but yeah, the, the smell is not going to be pleasant to deal with. Um, oh, so moving on to some case studies. So this particular pilot I did with Marsden District Council. I got funding to support 8 local businesses here who received a bit of a kit. So they got a compost caddy, some 2 10-litre buckets, and 3 months supply of the inoculant, as well as a soil factory, which included a 57-litre storage tote and 30 litres worth of potting mix. And we had the likes of a local coffee caravan on board. They would like store their soil factory underneath the caravan and had no issues with it going missing or anything like that. So that was great. We had a local Māori health unit, so they were awesome. They put the fact that they were part of this pilot on their Facebook page, and they had other health units want to jump on board. So they managed to figure out a system where they were taking the Bokashi home to use, or the staff would take it home to use it in their own households. They weren't using the soil factory, but yeah, they had a little wee collection system going on, which was cool. And then we had some officers who jumped on board, and one of them had like lots of fruit that were ending up in landfill, like bananas and citrus and coffee grounds, and they were able to process all of that in their gardens on site after they'd been through the soil factory. So they had no issues with like rats, and because that was one of the concerns that they had. And then we had a bus transport company, and yeah, unfortunately they had issues with their compost caddies going walkabout. And yeah, they felt like they needed someone there who would champion the whole approach in order for it to be embedded sustainably in the organization. So yeah, some good learnings from that. And yeah, we managed to divert 350 litres of food waste over a few months. So each they were kind of processing, around 30 to 40 litres of food waste over those 3 months. And this one here, so this is some work I was doing thanks to Wellington City Council funding. This is still ongoing. This is a 6-month pilot project where I'm working with 10 households. They're mainly 1 to 2 person households living in medium to high density dwellings with no garden, but they do have room for container gardens and a Bokashi system. They got about like $250 worth of product and education where they received compost caddy and a starter kit, containers, soil factory, and they've so far attended a compost workshop, and then they participated in a winter container garden. So they got given seedlings to grow in these containers using their finished Bokashi from their soil factory. And yeah, we got some great feedback recently. Yeah, some photos came through from one of the ladies in this photo. She just harvested her first bok choy and said it was delicious. So yeah, this is, as a nutritionist, this is like, yeah, this is where the dream is happening. Like, I'm just so excited to see full circle of how composting can support growing food in small spaces. And moving on to another pilot, which is in the South Wairarapa. So thanks to Betsy from City to Farm for this inspiration, where I'm working with a few businesses in the South Wairarapa, mainly restaurants, and sorry about that. I'll just keep talking. Yeah, so the concept is from the city to farm model. So I retrofitted 120-litre wheelie bins to carry out the Bokashi process. And the restaurant on the far left, so they'll be processing their finished Bokashi on site in their gardens, and the gentleman in the centre, so that restaurant, they've asked one of their suppliers to take the compost away, and that supplier will be processing it at their garden. And the third restaurant is where we've decided we're happy to collect their food waste and process it through our Compost Club, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But yeah, we had our mayor come to our latest Compost Club session, so he's just pictured there. So Compost Club, so this started in May of this year. It's a monthly Compost Club, free and family friendly, encouraging community members and businesses to come along and learn how to build compost, having more hands-on experience, building a pile from scratch, and yeah, it's an hour and a half and an opportunity to process the business waste, but also look for inputs that are accessible on farms. So we've been using the likes of like cow manure and food scrap as our main green input. But as our carbon input, we've been using cover crop mulch and wood chip as well. And yeah, it's been going really great. We'll probably finish up in October, so I'm not sure what will happen um, after then. Maybe we'll go to a different site. Who knows? Um, and then wanted to speak about some collaborative work where I've been working in the Hawke's Bay with a group of wonderful rangatahi who offer like a free household service to their local kaumātua. And they do that through an established social enterprise where they sell kawakawa balms, but also their own Bokashi inoculant, which I helped them co-design and provided all this education on how to Bokashi so they could educate their community, including like schools and other marae, process their kai waste. So yeah, this is obviously an ongoing project, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that flourishes as well. And they've called it rongo. So it was inspired by Yaswa Rongomatane, saying that right. And yeah, the essence of rongoa. So it's a bit of a play on words, but essentially, yeah, inspired by the Atua and power of healing. Yeah, in order to reduce kai waste and grow their own kai. And that is me. Any questions